Welcome, everybody. I thought I could get one last sip in before. You know what? The hell with it. Everybody hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
There we go. I need my coffee. All right. Welcome,
Coffee.
everybody, to the coffee. Yeah, I need my Jersey coffee. Welcome to the Life Between All or Nothing. I'm Scott J.
I'm Mary Kay.
And we are here to talk about living your life today and living your best life today and not waiting for everything to happen or for you to lose everything to make changes that you want to make. Today is the day you should be living your best life. Every day is the day you should be living your best life.
Mm-hmm.
Stop waiting. The life is happening now. In between all the big stuff, that's when all the good stuff happens. So we want to encourage people to do that, especially if you're somebody who's maybe a little bit later in life, maybe somebody who's always thought, I'd like to try something, but you never did it. What are you waiting for? You know what the worst thing in the world to have is? A bucket list that is sitting there waiting until you're too ill to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you have a bucket list?
I do have a bucket list.
You do? Did you actually? Well, you're the queen of stickies. You probably wrote it down somewhere, didn't you?
Yeah, not on a sticky though.
Not on a sticky. Okay. Well, we went permanent with this bitch.
I do have a bucket list, and you know the reason I wrote it was not because everybody was saying write a bucket list, but because I see what my parents are going through now, and they're in their early 80s now, but I think I wrote it when they were in their 70s, and just watching them decline physically and have some things going on with them. And knowing that they're never going to be able to fulfill whatever was on their bucket list. And to me, it's, you know what, get that bucket list down and start knocking off the items now.
Excellent.
Right? Do it now.
So have you actually physically been able to say check on your bucket list?
Yep. Public speaking was one.
Really?
Yeah. That was one.
But you're so good at speaking like this.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you think so. Yeah, I wasn't always good at speaking. Or I shouldn't say that. I should say I was afraid of speaking. I was, very, very afraid of getting up in front of a crowd.
I think they say that's the number one phobia is speaking in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
Right behind clowns. I mean, clowns, I think, is number one.
Yeah, I think I have a clown phobia.
Jean is with us.
Hi, Jean.
And also shared, and if this will please. She also shared that she did her number one bucket list thing, but doesn't tell us.
Oh, nice.
You don't just tell us you did a thing. You can't just say I did a thing and then leave it at that. You got to tell us what it was. So
yeah, especially if it's the top thing, we want to know what it is.
Yeah. What is the top thing? I took out things like skydiving because everybody does that, and it's like, I really want? Don't put things on your bucket list that you don't want to do. I'm going to tell people that right now. If you're going to make a bucket list, first of all, I hate bucket lists. Make a list of things you want to do and go do them tomorrow. Go do them tomorrow. But
go do them all tomorrow.
Yeah. Do what you can. If you get a chance to do it tomorrow, do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't wait until get a call from a doctor saying I got bad news, and then go do your bucket list. But don't put things on there like everybody puts I want to go skydiving. It's like, do you really want to? Because if you really want to, you probably would have done it already. So I think what people like saving those things because if I go splat, I'm at the end anyway. So it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Oh, boy.
Oh, her thing was meeting Pat Benatar. And she
nice.
And she's actually, I would say, friendly with Pat Benatar.
Beautiful.
So that's good. Jean, thanks for joining us, darling.
Yeah,
all right. We have, what we're going to be talking about today is we're talking about getting back on track today. And this had come to your head. Do you remember?
Yes.
Why did this particular topic come to you?
Oh, because I've gotten off track. That's why. So I'm here to pick your brain, Scott, on how to get myself back on track. So, all kidding aside, that's definitely part of it, is that I've fallen off track with a lot of things that I had put into motion back in 2021, early 2022. And, then my dad had to go on dialysis and I hit menopause. And I'm very open about that. And there's been a lot of physical stuff happening with me that, has kind of pushed me off that track. So
Okay.
I'm working to get back on track. And I thought it would be a really good topic because, as a coach, I have a lot of tools in my toolbox, and I can pick one, see if it works. If it doesn't work, pick another one, pick another one, pick another one. I think a lot of people may not have that, or may feel really bad for falling off track and then beat themselves up. And so yeah, I'd like the conversation to go that way too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And it's funny, as a coach, unlimited toolboxes, and when I do my speaking thing and my training and stuff, unlimited tools, toolbox, and I can tell everybody everything. But then when it comes to physician, heal thyself, and do this for you, it becomes, well, wait a minute, that's different. I can tell this whole group of people, this is how you're going to turn your life around. This is how you're going to change your shit around. This is how you're going to help people change their lives. But then when I have a problem, it's not like I refer to my material and say, okay, well, maybe I should do this. When I have a problem, it's like, well, this transcends all the bullshit I tell everybody. But that's a normal thing. We always think that whatever we're going through at the moment is completely different and completely, separate from everything else that we do. So that becomes difficult. And we see that a lot with people who are coaches, is that they get themselves into binds and they don't have the same, it doesn't feel like they have the same resources that we put out there for other people, right?
Yeah, even though intellectually we know we do.
Yeah.
But I think in a lot of cases too, we became coaches to help other people. So we'd rather help other people than help ourselves. I think that's part of it too. Yeah.
Right. Got some, Sandy Mom is with us.
Hi, Sandy Mom.
And Jean says, my train not only went off track, it rolled downhill. I love that. And this is like so special. Look who is here with us tonight.
Yay!
It is Therese.
Hello.
Hi, Therese.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
So glad you're here tonight. Therese and I do our Exes podcast together. And we've known each other since we were kids almost. Well, pretty much, yeah.
Well, kids, yes.
Yeah, we were kids. And, we're the exes, but we're also still best friends and everything. And, when you brought this topic up, Mary, it was like, Teresa was one of those people that I said, I bet you she's probably got some really good stuff for this, because she's had to, like a lot of women, in life, had to kind of like pick up everything and start over. And sometimes even with kids in tow, and just say, all right, time to reinvent again, get back on track and figure my shit out. And, so I'm glad you're here to help us with this, Therese.
I love it. Yeah.
I don't know how much help I'll be, but I'm here.
And we're not going to talk about murdering people on this show today. All right. We'll save that for our show.
That's your Wednesday show. Yes.
Yeah.
Sandy Mom's giving you the shout out. Hi, Therese.
Hi, Mom.
There we go. She's actually watching this with my sister, who's in town,
nice.
Melissa. So shout out to my sister, Melissa.
Oh,
who's
nice.
in town and
hi, Melissa.
Down the street at my mom's house.
At your mom's?
At my mom's. Melissa Jenright is here. Oh, that's my sister.
Hi, Melissa.
Oh, yeah. Your sister.
Oh my God.
Oh boy.
I was thinking about her other last name. Never mind.
No, she was young the last time I saw her.
Yeah, you haven't
She
seen
was
her.
like chopper on your hip young.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
You should have Sandy and Melissa behind you while you're doing the show. That would be cool.
They are behind me.
I mean
behind this
in the
wall
room.
about two blocks down. They are truly behind me right now. No,
oh
I have
my
one of
God.
those days. I have one of those days I don't want anybody in my house.
Yeah, I know.
I've had a talk with the cat, Jonesy. I said, stay out of my way today. Just I don't
Oh
want to
boy.
be around people. I'm just tired and I've had a long day, and I just really looking forward to just a cold shower and relaxing tonight and everything else. But so let's talk about this getting back on track. First thing I want to mention, and I'd love you guys' opinions on this, is that many times we panic too quickly when we go just a little bit askew. You know, it's like I want everything to go like this, and when things go a little bit off, it's almost like we feel like we're lost in the woods, and we barely even have gone off the side of the road. We just had a little bit of an issue. Do you think sometimes we panic too much when things don't go exactly right, and people tend to make things worse for themselves instead of just saying, okay, so it's not perfect, but I'm still in the right direction? Am I barking up the right tree with this? Either one of you?
You're barking up the right tree. Yeah, for sure. And I think because, you know, when you set yourself a path or a track or whatever we want to call it here, that gives you that level of certainty and that comfort. And so you go down that and you know what to expect and there's no surprises. And then when there is a surprise, you're like, what? I didn't plan for that. And then you got to figure out what to do from there. So uncertainty, I think, is at the root.
Therese, you following that?
I am, yeah. I usually have things set in my mind the way it's supposed to go. Yeah. And then if something gets a little off, I get a little panicky and I have to like reset and be like, all right, let's see, we got to deal with this first. And then I can move on. But I really kind of keep things one step ahead. I can't go 2, 3, 4 steps ahead.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think there's a couple of nuggets in there, Therese, for sure, because when you said reset, which I think is a really good thing for people to hear, that we can stop and we can reset. That's one thing. And well, oh my God, what was the other thing you said now? I'm off track.
I think the idea that it's like, you know, instead of looking, when people tend to look way too far ahead of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like any kind of movement that takes you astray, any kind of bump in the road that you may experience in your life, it seems so much more dramatic when you're looking way down the road. It's like being on an airplane. And the closer you are to the front of the plane, when the wheels hit the ground, you feel that little bit of a bump. But as you go towards the back of the plane, you're broadening the distance between you and the event, and it seems like the event is bigger than it really is. So when the wheels hit the ground, you feel like you're jumping all over the place. But the same thing with life. If you're looking too far ahead, everything seems like a disaster. But when you're just taking it one step at a time, if you're on that one step and you're looking at the one thing that you're doing, the one step in front of you, if something goes wrong, it's like, oh, okay, let me just fix that. And then you keep going. Is that kind of why that hyper focus comes in, Therese?
Well, I think so. And thinking too far ahead sometimes just is too much on my brain. It gives me anxiety. I can't do it.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know that with Tara sometimes, you know, when she was getting ready for college and, you know, and then the next year, and I'm like, whoa, hold up. Let's just settle this here first. Let's get you into college first. Let's do that first. So it's just kind of like, I can't deal with things that are too far ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a story. I was working with a woman who was trying to beat her addiction with alcohol. And I'm working with her in these groups and I'm doing some things, and she kept hyper obsessing about her daughter's wedding. And she's like, you know, I can't be going through this at my daughter's wedding. I want to be able to have a glass of champagne. And I'm like, whoa, back up the truck a little bit there. You can't drink. I mean, you're in a position, you're telling me you got a problem. It doesn't mean that you get to have a drink here. But that's going to be horrible not being able to have the champagne. It's going to ruin the wedding. She's going to be so upset with me. The other family's going to hate me. She had this whole big thing. We talked for maybe 2 or 3 hours. I asked her how old her daughter was. You know what her answer was? Her daughter was 4.
Yeah, I knew it.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes if we're not paying attention to what's right in front of us, everything becomes exaggerated and awful and terrible. And if you just look at the fact that, hey, listen, she's not getting married today, I don't have to worry about that shit. I just got today in front of me. Let me just take care of this. But
Yeah.
I think getting off track, sometimes I find there's two things that either happen. One is we panic because we're off track and it turns out we're really not, and we're not that far off. Or we ignore the train as it's now barreling through the woods. We've gone off track and we've just become so, I don't know, unfocused on what we're trying to do that we just don't know until it's way too late. I think we see that in relationships. And, of course, I got people here who can tell me about me. So, and I'm fine with that. I mean, Teresa and I know I'm fine with yeah. You guys can have fun with this. But one of the things that happened with me and Teresa on my end, and I'm not speaking for her at all, and I won't do that, but on my end, I didn't realize that things were off track because I was too busy pretending everything was okay. I was too busy trying to make everything okay. And, it's like, the house is falling down. Okay, but let me just put a coat of paint on it and it won't look like it's falling down. That's what I was doing. And I did not realize. And then even at the end, she was the one who actually had the balls finally to stand up and say, this shit ain't working. Something's wrong. This is broken. And I was saying, what are you talking about? It's not that bad. And I actually didn't believe it. I had to sit with it for a while before I could realize, holy shit, she's right.
Wow.
So that's a problem a lot of people have too, is they're so busy making things look good, they forget to actually make things be good. So that's another way of going off track, is we're so busy trying to make it look like we're on the tracks, we forget to actually stay on the tracks. And we see that a lot with relationships. How many relationships do you know where somebody looks perfectly happy and then all of a sudden it feels like immediately they're just miserable? But they've been heading in that direction. They just don't acknowledge it. Have you guys had experience with that? I'm sure Teresa hasn't.
No, not at all. No.
I'll let Therese go first, but I'm going to ask you a question, Therese. So when things went off track with Scott way back when did you know they went off track? Like, what was, or when did you know? How did you know? Like, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. I'd love to hear
was finding myself, kind of walking on eggshells, like trying to rock the boat between the kids and him. And I was playing peacemaker with everybody. Yeah. And then it just got to be where I really couldn't do that anymore.
You can't live like that.
Yeah, this is not good. And then we did have a couple big kind of incidences that kind of woke me up a little. It's kind of like, all right, so this is not really the way I want to live. And if it's not going to change, then, I've got to do something else.
And we had distraction too sometimes. That's something else.
Yeah.
We were dealing with, God bless Cordy, who was on our show a couple weeks ago, Mary. But she was in the midst of her addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And then the death of her mother came up, and then this, and there was a bunch of things where that was a distraction. Her daughter was getting out of school a year early, going off to college, and dealing with her own stuff. Then we had COVID, and we had all these little COVID was a big distraction for us.
Yeah, I can imagine.
2 months of our lives were spent looking for toilet paper. I swear that was we could have been all just like walking around with open wounds and bleeding, and it wouldn't have mattered. We had to find toilet. It was the only thing that mattered. But we find those distractions, either whether it's a relationship or even in your own life, you find these distractions that keep you from keeping your eye and making sure that you're staying on track. So we were going way off track then, but there were so many distractions that it was really easy to just say, well, things don't feel right, but it's because, well, obviously this, or obviously that, or this. And when those things started to clear a little bit, or at least started to come to a head, that's when, Therese finally just said, this isn't just all that shit. This is us. And it was, it was the best thing. It was what was needed to happen. It sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked, but it was what needed to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody had to be paying attention to the tracks, and I wasn't.
Somebody had to be paying attention.
I was down in
The-
I was down in the gambling car, just having fun and pretending everything was fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even though you're supposed to be the conductor of the train, driving the train.
Yeah, right.
It's like, come back, drive. And I think, bringing up COVID and distractions in general, that I've identified that as something, not that thing in particular, but distractions in particular, as something that gets me off track. So I think I subconsciously maybe look for distractions in order to procrastinate from the things I'm supposed to be doing that are on that track. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's like being busy doing the stuff that you're not supposed to be doing, but it keeps you busy so that you're not doing the stuff that you said you were going to do.
Right.
If that makes sense.
And then you don't have time to sit there and think about the things that you're not doing because you're busy. You are busy. You're just not busy with the right things. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. It took me, once we made our decision, which it was not an easy decision, but it was a good decision. But it took me, and I mean, probably couldn't have happened at a worse time, to be honest. My daughter was up in New York in college. My other daughter was coming down, picking out her wedding dress. She was getting married. I mean, it was still in the midst of COVID. I still was wearing my mask when I had to go shopping and this and that. So it wasn't like the best time, but it took me a good kind of week to sit with it all, sit with the decision before I actually did anything. And then I had to start, all right, well, this move has got to happen from Florida to New York. How am I going to do that? I've got to get this in place. I got to get that in place. I've got to get my resume. I've got to try to find a job. Got to find somewhere to live. So it took me probably about a week of just kind of settling and just being like, all right, how is this going to work? How am I going to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was,
wow.
It was uncomfortable, but at the same time, it felt like it was the right decision. It was hard to argue with it at that point for either of us, I think. But I'm really curious because the both of you have been through something that, I've been through, separation and divorce, and I've been through breakups, and I've done that kind of thing. And I've never had to do that when there's been children involved. Where you guys have been in situations. I mean, we've all talked about it before. Teresa, obviously you were married before me. You didn't tell me that until recently. I thought I was the first. I don't know where those children came from. No, I'm kidding. She's married before, but there's a lot of women out there that don't make changes in their lives because they're trying to protect their children. And you guys made those changes with the children. What's the right choice there? I mean, is it a bad idea to try to stay miserable just to protect your children? I mean, because a lot of people do that out there.
A lot of people do that. I personally don't think that that's better because that's kind of the way I grew up, right? My house was very volatile. Between my parents fighting, my brothers fighting. I mean, they should have been divorced long before they were. I used to pray that they would get a divorce. My father would pack up, leave for a day, and then come back with his tail between his legs. And so I don't think that that's better. And I don't know if it's because I grew up that way and I didn't want my kids to grow up that way. But there's a way to make it work. I mean, it's not my first husband and I, it took us a good, probably 3 years to actually be able to speak about anything except the kids. We could co-parent fine and discuss what they needed and discuss what the plan was with that. But other than that, every time we got off the kid track, it wasn't pretty. So it took about 3 years, but I mean, now we're fine.
Yeah. I mean, you actually, you had your exes you got along very well with. I was always impressed by that. And I hadn't had that experience. In fact, Teresa, you and I, it's the first experience I've had where it's like the friendship must remain. It's that important. And that, or that it's even worth salvaging because, I didn't have a chance to do it with Hera because she passed away, and then the drugs and alcohol made that a different mess.
Yeah.
I was married before, but I don't, I think 5 minutes after I left the house, I lost track of her, and I've never heard from her or seen her again. And
wow.
I know, it's like just total, like, you're dead. Seriously, it's driving down the road, you're dead to me. And it actually was true. She was just gone. She was no idea whatever happened. But, Mary, you did the same thing. You had to do that. And, was that a difficult decision to, like, should I stay and protect, or should I do this, or, how'd that work out?
It was difficult. Our son was 5 at the time. So he was pretty young, almost 6. And my background, cultural, family influence, I knew that they were going to challenge me on it. It was going to be a tough road for me to get through that bit because of the judgment that I was going to get from my family. Or so I thought, right? At some point, I decided, like you, Therese, I mean, enough is enough. This can't go on the way it's going. And we did try and sort of work things out, but it still didn't work. And so my way of making sure that I didn't do damage to my child was to negotiate with my ex on what the split was going to look like. So in every aspect, financially and all that stuff, in a way that we would both be okay with what we were doing, and that our son would be okay. So, and I sacrificed a lot in that decision, and that was fine because he now has an amazing relationship with his dad. I, bought a house around the corner, so we're close. But like you, Therese, it did take a few years before we could talk about stuff that wasn't just kid stuff or, soccer, school, whatever. And so it took a while to get into that. Like, is it okay to talk about this? And, it worked out well. And I think for anybody listening, the answer is never black and white. Like, you've got to look at your own situation and see, okay, what's best for me here? What's best for my children here? And how can we do this like two collaborative humans? And sometimes that's not possible. Right? Sometimes it's not possible because if you're in an abusive relationship, well, maybe your life is going to have to be the priority.
Right.
So, and talk to someone. I mean, I would talk to someone. If I could do it all over again, I would have talked to someone, before instead of after, because I kind of did it all by myself. Even my friends didn't know exactly what was going on.
Same.
Yeah, it was after the decision was made and then dealing with it. And I think it would have been a lot healthier for me had I seen a therapist before. That would have been better.
Yeah, I agree. Because I didn't, and you think I would have learned by the third time I did this. But I didn't really, I don't know. I guess part of it was I didn't want to bash the other person too soon or too much because I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. So then, like, when I did say that we were breaking up, like my first marriage, everyone, my girlfriends and everyone included was like, but you're the perfect couple. And I'm like, yeah. No, we're not. Honest, we're not. So I did go to a therapist. So I did get some therapy, but it was all after. It was all, it was never before. And even my mother said, well, you never said anything. I'm like, well,
that's what mine said too.
Say, though? But what are you going to say? Because I don't want her to hate him, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you end up deciding to try and work it out. You don't want all those bad feelings in there.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
My dad did say to me, are you sure you're not just being stubborn? I'm like, oh, wait, hold up. You are my father. This happened. And would you like me to stay there after this, and this happened? So then he shut up about it for a while. Wow. But yeah, that was the first thing he said. Are you sure you're just not being stubborn? I'm like, Dad, really?
First of all, how's your
Yeah.
father doing? Is he doing well, Therese?
I don't know. He's back to his not answering.
Oh,
I've been trying to call him about once a week since Easter. So
yeah.
Wow.
All right. I'm sorry.
it's all right.
That's just a pain in the ass, but
I'm assuming he's okay.
yeah, you guys actually, I want to ask this, and this is an honest question, and I'm going to. Men tend to be more selfish at times in their lives, being a father, being a husband, or being in a relationship and all that stuff. Men still tend to take care of themselves a little bit better. Women tend to be a little bit more of the caretakers, and well, I've got to take care of the kids, I got to take care of the house, I got to take care of this, I got to take care of that. So is it possible to stay on track and take care of all those other things at the same time? Or does that distract? Do you have to sacrifice your being on track and you're getting what you want if you want to have a relationship? Because I think that's what a lot of people think. I'll tell you the truth. I don't know if I'll ever have another relationship because I have started to figure out what I want. And I know for a fact, I don't know if I'm healthy enough to have a relationship where I can still be who I am, be honest in the relationship, and not try to make everything look good all the time. I don't know if I'm ever going to be that healthy. So I'm going to be a little bit selfish and say I'm going to stay out of relationships and take care of me and do what I got to do. But can you have it all?
Well, I mean, not so far. I mean, to be honest.
So yeah. And Therese, I'm in the same boat. So I can't swear to it because I haven't experienced it, but I do believe it to be true. I do believe that you can have it all. And maybe you can't have it all at the same time. So
that's true.
There's prioritizing, right? So for me, when I try and think of, okay, so how is someone actually going to fit into my life? Okay, well, definitely not Thursday nights because I have a podcast. But I try and think about what might it look like, and then try and invite that into my life. So if somebody wanted to hang out with me every day of the week, that's not going to work for me. A couple of times a week, okay, maybe that's maybe more like it. And there are people that are happy, like me, with a couple of times a week. Finding that match. So finding someone that appreciates you and also has their own stuff, is also taking care of their, like, the things that they want to do. So I think there's.
We're all three of us are within a year of each other in birth and age.
Yeah.
We're all the same age, the three of us.
Yeah.
And I think that most people who have reached our age, I think we're past the I love you so much I want to see you every single day thing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I think we've outgrown that. That's gone. It's really more like, boy, I'd love to see you on Wednesdays and Saturdays and see how that works out, between the hours of 6 and 9 or 8 because Survivor's on at 8 and I got to be home to watch it. We're not as desperate for that, because when you're kids and you're young and all that. So that is a good point. We make those things, but
yeah, I was just talking to my daughter last night because she's young and single and gonna enjoy her summer, and she went out for a quick little date the other night. And she's like, well, why don't you just do that? Just date, just go out. And I'm like, well, because the apps scare the bejesus out of me. I don't like it. People are weird. I don't like it. I've heard too many stories. And it's just, and then I was sitting there, we were sitting in the living room and I'm like, well, I don't know if I really want anyone to invade my life. Like, this is my space. I don't really want someone thinking, oh, they're going to move in, or, oh, they're going to, give me suggestions on this or that, or, I'm not really into it. I'm like, not right now. Anyway, not right now.
Is this a good transition or a bad transition that we realize that somebody else does not make our life better? It would be nice to have somebody that's around that fits in and kind of adds to it. That's great.
Yeah.
But I think we've all outgrown the idea that I have to have somebody in my life to be a complete. And
Yeah.
is this a good transition that we've all made here? And is this something that people do at this age, in their late 40s, early 50s, and even into their late 50s? Is that the transition people make where I don't need somebody to make me complete? It'd be nice to have somebody around, but I don't want somebody taking over again,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good transition. I don't know if anybody else is doing it at this age or what, but I mean, for me, it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting in my own groove now where I can just hop in the car and go where I want to go and do what I want to do.
All right. Well, let's get back because we got off track, so we need to get back on track on our conversation. And it's really easy because I'm sure that Teresa's probably got plenty of stories that you guys can share on Messenger. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have no legs to stand on to deny anything she tells you. So it's just, it is what it is. None of it was done out of malice, but out of idiocy or just not understanding me. Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's talk about this getting back on track. Now, we've talked about like having to change things. I mean, Teresa, you just 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, you left Florida where we were down here for 10 years almost or whatever it was. Wow. You left Florida and went back up with a little crate. What are the shipping crate things? Those things. They drop it off in the driveway. Yeah, the little pod, the little mini. It was like a mini pod, though.
Yeah.
And we cut the furniture in half and shoved it in there. It was almost like that, right?
Almost, yeah.
And you went up, and not only did you go back up north, you didn't go to Syracuse. You went to Rochester.
Correct.
A new town. Mm-hmm. It was near the kids and all that stuff, but it was a total almost like okay. Once again, I had all these pretty pictures and somebody came in and erased everything, and now I got to draw new pictures.
I was pretty pissed off about that.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, I'm sure. It's got to be like, because even I mean, it's like, after you left and I'm staying around saying, what the hell? Here we go again. Here we go again, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, and Mary, I know you've told me your story, but you've had to do that. All of a sudden, it's like, that's it. It's got to, something's got to. So we all have been at that point of now we got to reinvent ourselves, get back on track, figure stuff out. What is the motivator for you guys for that? I'm going to tell you what mine was. Mine was, if I don't change shit, I'm going to be doing this again in a couple of years with somebody else. That my life is my life is probably going to be worse because there was a time in my life when I was a violent human being. Now, I wasn't that person with Therese, but there was an undercurrent of anger,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably was not that far from going back to being a violent human being again and having some things. I was so afraid of just going backwards and not growing that I think I said, I've got to do things different this time. And talking openly about the things I've done and the things I've done wrong and the mistakes I made has really made that helpful for me. But again, my motivation was I was tired of repeating the same thing. And I was tired of doing the same things, going in with new intentions, but ending up with the same results because I didn't learn. So I'm curious, when you guys were at those points where it's like, I got to start over, I got to get back on track, or maybe even a track that I've never been on before, but I got to get on it. What motivated you guys to do that? Because it's got to be, sometimes you had to throw your hands up and just say, what the hell?
I think that pretty much that was my same motivation is, I don't want to make these same mistakes again. I want to get settled. I want to get my shit together, basically. And before I can even think about, adding another person or anything into it, which, right now is not the case. But I think that was similar. I just didn't want to do it again. I mean, I had 2 failed marriages. We had a long relationship, 10 years. And it's just like, I don't want to do it again. Yeah. That's pretty much was the feeling. And I was always that girl that had the boyfriends all lined up, right?
Yeah.
But even when I was young, if I felt like someone was going to break up with me, oh, quick, I had to break up with him and move on to this guy that I, known and maybe knew liked me a little bit. And like, I always had that next relationship ready.
I knew that's what you did to me when we were kids. I knew it.
No, that was my mom.
Yeah.
My mom,
I walked into the violence of their family. I got hit in the head with a shoe from her mom.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was like one of the first times I went into that house because her brother was always the target of
anger,
clogs being thrown, or knives or something, or spoons. Those kitchen spoons your mom threw it a lot at him. And sometimes he would duck and not tell me, you should duck. Anyway, okay, so you would line all those things up.
Yeah, so now is probably the longest, really, honestly, the longest that I have truly been single. Probably in my life.
Me too, Therese. Yeah. Since 2021, 2 years, almost 2 years. Yeah.
So, Mary, what was your motivation going in and having to do all these new things and again, create a new track? I mean, what was your motivation?
Well, I mean, for me, my motivation was my new track because within a couple of months of, my marriage breaking up, I was also starting a brand new career. I was leaving a career and a marriage at the same time and turning 40. It was like, oh my God, what a year. Excuse me. And so I didn't have a lot of motivation. I was kind of numb after that. I was kind of numb. Like I found myself in my house, my own place for the first time by myself. My son was at my ex's and it was just me. And I was like, huh? and I was numb, but I had things on the list, right? It's like, okay, learn how to climb this particular corporate ladder. And so that was my distraction where I didn't stop to think about, okay, what actually went wrong in my marriage and what was my responsibility in that? Because then I kept doing it over and over and over again. So for 10 years, so for the years between 40 and 50, I kept chasing relationships. I just kept chasing it and not realizing that they weren't working out, mostly because of me, my expectations and the script that I had written for them and not shared with them. And they weren't playing the part properly and, all that kind of thing. And so, so on the relationship side, I didn't quite learn my lesson. So the motivation was to keep myself hooked up with someone. On the career front, that worked out fine, and I'm still there actually. And it took me a while to learn. I didn't do that feel your feelings thing. I needed to feel my feelings, and even with the therapy, I think half the time I was faking it with her. Right? Faking it. I just wanted to get through the sessions and take what little pieces I thought would help me, and didn't fully commit to that process. I since have learned how to do that with a different therapist.
I think that's something a lot of people do, though, is relationships, jobs that go off track, even just regular things that go off track. We're anxious to say, oh, let me assign blame to something and then move on. Instead of processing, I played a role in that. You don't stick around something for 10 years and say, well, it wasn't my fault at all. You were in something that was broken for a long time. So you had to have a part in it. But it's really easy for me to say, okay, here's what you did, and here's what you did, and this is why it broke, and now I'm going to walk away, but I've learned nothing about me. And I think what you were just saying is you kind of run through it quickly, but you don't sit with it. You don't sit with it for a while and say, what could I have done? Instead of just saying, hey, I did everything I could, and you know what? You see that relationships, jobs, everything else, friendships that break up. Anytime people go off track, there's a lot of times they're just, well, I couldn't help it. It just happened, and it's not my fault, and just move on. Well, you're going to be stuck in that situation again unless you learn something from it. You got to
Yep.
sit with it.
Yeah.
And I think part of this process of the three of us actually having your own space and being alone for a while, it's almost like it's thrown in your face a little bit, you know, and it's the kind of thrown in your face like, all right, God damn it, who moved the remote? And then I realized I'm the only one who lives here. And say, maybe I don't put things back as well as I think I do. A little revelation like that,
Yeah.
this can go a long way towards, well, what else did I do that I thought that I was so good at that I really wasn't that good at? And you start to learn those things. So have you guys had those moments where you just like, wow.
Yeah, I've
Oh, yeah.
definitely learned. I mean, I thought I was a good communicator, but as it turns out, I really don't think I was, because
Yeah.
when I get upset or angry, I'm not really that outwardly angry person. I
Right.
turn it all inside and I kind of shut down.
Me too.
So I don't. So I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to, let people know what's wrong, and it's okay. I still love you, but this made me a little bit upset.
You get two butthurt, broken people from bad marriages together, and they're both so desperate to pretend this is good that I don't care. A hurricane go through the middle of the house, and you both still be sitting there, trying to eat your dinner at a table that no longer exists. It's like, oh yeah, everything's fine. This is great. Yeah, wonderful. And goats and cows and shit's flying everywhere. But let's just pretend everything is okay, because we know what bad is, and we don't ever want it to be bad. And so we do everything to avoid that bad. I don't speak for Teresa and her thing, but when my bad was bad, it was violent and awful and scary. And I hurt people, people hurt me, and I was scared of what I'd become. And there was so many things that said, absolutely never, ever, ever let that side of you come out. And if that means hiding whenever you're uncomfortable, that's what you do. If that means hiding whenever you have bad news, you hide it. It means hiding whenever you feel less than, you do that. Don't share those things, because that opens the door to the monster. And so I created this, hey, everything's good. Yeah, everything's great. It's like, meanwhile, they're towing the car away. Well, I didn't pay you the bill, but everything's good. Everything's great. And it's like, that's the kind of simple bullshit that goes on in those things. But we keep going back. We keep getting back off. We're getting off track. But that's why I love this topic, because
we're three different trains.
Yeah, I know. I know. But let's get, just to kind of like wrap this up a little bit. Getting back on track, I think people always overcomplicate things. I think the first thing you have to do is to recognize, what is your track. Everybody's always, oh, I'm way off track here, or oh, I'm way behind. But if you don't know what road you're supposed to be on, if you don't know what your track is, if you don't know what you really want, you're never going to be on track. So I think the first thing we have to determine for everybody out there, and probably the only thing that's important, is know what you want and know that you want to have that thing. And that you're willing to do it. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would take it back one step. Take it back one step, in that before you can decide on what you want, know what your values are. Like, know what you value now, today, at this age, because it's different than 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You're a different person, different priorities. So, I mean, values for me, flexibility, compassion, self-awareness, spirituality. Like, I understand what those are. And then when I'm looking at, okay, what do I really want? I'm using those values as a checklist almost. Okay, does it tick that value and that value? Okay, so now I know that's the general direction I'm going to go in. So yeah, know thyself.
Yes. Self-awareness, I think, is
Self-awareness.
the best tool to get you on that track.
Yeah. So, Teresa, if you've been spending, I mean, is that something that's been a focus for you now, is looking at saying, what do I really want for me?
Yes.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And that's all I have to worry about. What do I really want for me?
which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. And, you know, we do silly things like, you know, we have our podcast, which I'm not saying they're silly, but
They're
you know, we have this
great.
podcast and
it's fun.
we talk about, you know, my passion, which is helping people make changes, because I know what it's like not to change. And in Mary, you have the same passion. Teresa and I, we wanted to show people that you don't have to destroy everything because part of your relationship doesn't work. And that became about somehow that just had the natural transition from exes and being friends to capital murder. That's how that transition happened.
Somehow it happened.
But you know what? It's our thing and we don't care. Hopefully people like it and stuff, but we have a blast doing it. And, you know, we were just talking on the phone the other day. We got to find a new murderer to follow. Some people are out there killing like one or two. If you're only going to kill one or two people at a time, we need something better than that. Come on. At least make it interesting, okay?
Someone newsworthy.
I don't want to ignore Jean, who's been making comments here. She was born in Rochester, Teresa.
Where in Rochester?
Yeah, where in Rochester were you born, Jean? And her motivation was, you know, because she was coming from a place of violence and abuse. Her motivation was very simple. I want to live. And sometimes we don't even think of that as being the best motivation for ourselves. Sometimes it's, you know, and there's more ways of dying than to physically die. You could die where you basically just give up on enjoying your life at all. Give up on your dreams of what you want to do, or trying things, or doing anything, or being adventurous at all. You know, you just give all that up. So sometimes I want to live. It isn't so much the actual physical live, but it's more of the idea of I want to live a life, be something, do something that I want to laugh when I want to laugh, and I want to cry when I want to cry, and I want to have these things.
I call that tasting life. Yes. I wake up every day and I say, I want to taste life. I'm not always successful at it, and I fall into old, you know, stress and anxiety habits. But that's my general intention every day. I want to taste life. She
says, I haven't actually been batting 1,000 in real life situations. Nobody bats 1,000.
None of us. Yeah.
Babe Ruth, the greatest hitter of all time, batted like a 220 or something like that. He didn't have a great batting average. He struck out more than he hit home runs. That's for sure.
Okay, I don't think she was talking about a real batting average.
Oh, I thought she was playing ball somewhere.
But I do think sometimes, like, I had to learn how to give myself grace.
Yeah.
Because I beat myself up. You know, what went wrong? How did I let this go wrong again? You know, I was, one of my girlfriends said, well, why didn't you tell me that you were moved back? I said, well, because, I mean, it's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
This is, you know, I'm doing this again. I have to start over again. But I also have to like look at it and say, it's not the worst thing in the world. Things happen. Relationships don't work out. This is where I'm at. And I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to give myself grace and just say, yes, you made mistakes, but we're going to learn from them and we're going to move on. And I think that's an important thing because I did beat myself up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's hard. That's a hard part of these things, of these big life changes that happen, and that when we figure out that we, like me, when I finally figured out that I was, okay, I had some responsibility here, then I was in that place, right? It took me longer to get there, but then I was in that place beating myself up and not cutting myself the slack. And you're right, it's so important for you to be doing that, for all of us to be doing that all the time, cut ourselves some slack. I mean, I know there's people that make these grand New Year's resolutions, and here we are in May, and they've been off track for 4 months, right? Right, a month into it.
They lasted a good week. They
had a good week, and they've been beating themselves up for 4 months because they went off track instead of focusing on one thing and just doing that, right? That's close to the track. Then I'll just do that one thing. And then focusing on another thing, because 4 months will pass anyway. Right. And it's not a great way to spend our time beating ourselves up when we could be doing something a little more constructive. So I think, giving yourself that grace. Therese, that was a really good point and a really good reminder.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
My sister sharing that her, she's in modulation, but I think does motivation, was to live and make sure my boys wouldn't treat women the way their father had. We had mentioned earlier in the show about not getting your life where you need it to be, sacrificing and staying in a rut because you want to make sure the kids have both family and they have this and they have that. But many times, and I can tell you this from experience with my wife Hera, and in the kids, that we stayed together a lot longer than we should have, because we had addiction tearing us apart too. So there was all lots of things, but we stayed in it, and the kids learned more bad things from us than they learned good things during those times. So a lot of times when people are saying, well, I can't make it, well, you know what? That's the time when you really should, because you need to show your children that if you're not living your best life, you're allowed to choose your best life. By showing them that we're stuck, what we're saying is one day you're going to be stuck too. So,
absolutely. Kids watch. We are built-in role models, right, for our kids. Scott, I want to go back to addiction for a moment. Particularly your experience with addiction.
Yeah. Okay.
So you had to have some kind of motivation to get out of that addiction and into recovery. Like, what was that switch and that motivation for you to get way off that track or out of that train?
It was a the immediate motivation for me was that I actually was more comfortable thinking about the idea of dying than I was the idea of living another day. I hated myself for not having the courage to die by my own hand, and I had been in those situations and tried, but I felt like a coward. But I felt that my existence on this planet was done. I had burned it out, ruined it, destroyed it, and that there was nothing left for me, and not a thing. I didn't feel love when I looked at my children. My wife, my family, my mother, my father, my brothers. I felt nothing, and I wanted to feel something. I love people, and I wanted that, but I'd look at them, and when I'd realize I was just completely empty, that was what kicked me in the ass to say, okay, you either have to. There's the old thing: get busy living or get busy dying. And I've already shown myself that there's something stopping me from killing myself. So maybe I better start fighting a little bit more for my life. And I knew what that entailed. I knew that meant putting down the drink and the drugs, getting help, starting to talk to people. But that was just part one of growth. Whenever you're dealing with addiction, then comes the mental health growth. Then comes the growth of responsibility. Then comes the growth of other things. Growth that I'm still experiencing here today, talking to you guys, and that I experienced with Therese when things went south with us, and even more so when we were able to, months after that happened, talk on the phone and actually have a real conversation about it, and not have to just say, well, let's say everything's okay. To actually say to her, I'm sorry that I wasn't there. I'm sorry that even when I was there, I wasn't there. And to be able to do that, that's like, you become like, I want more of that. My track now leads me anywhere more towards where I could feel better about me, not because I want to be like an ego, feel better, but to like learn more and explore more and share that with as many people as I possibly can. But the truth is, my motivation was I was tired of being empty and gone, and I needed to feel anything, and the pain of withdrawal and going through all of that was better than having no feelings at all. So that's what motivated me to change. But now again, what motivates me is the experiences I have with Therese, the people we talk to together, watching what my daughter goes through on a daily basis, and dealing with haters who don't like gay or trans or any of those other things, and staying sober, losing her mother, all those things that she's done that make her a hero to me, and to watch her. And it's like, it motivates me to say, Jesus, you've got this track laid out for you in front of you that's meant to help people and do great things and become a better human being than you've been. Just stay on that. And I love it. And I love it.
Amazing.
I wish I could have done more of that when Therese was here. I wish I could have done more of that and brought some of that maybe to my family before, where maybe, Hera didn't have to die from her addiction. My kids didn't have to lose their mother. I wish all those things. But you know what? We are where we are today. And if I could have a chance to go back and change it, the problem is if I went back to that same place, I would adopt the same mindset, and I probably would have done it the same way. So I don't think I could. No, really. Everybody says, oh, I'd go back and I'd make a difference. If you were standing in your shoes where you were back then at that time, your thinking would be the same as it was then. So you're not going to change shit. Just make it different today.
I do fully believe that everything that we've gone through, good or bad, in our past, has led us to where we are today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
I mean, if it had gone a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I froze up for a minute, did I?
I think
you did. You did freeze, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, figures. Everything I do with this goddamn shit. All right. Well, listen, we're towards the end of the show. I want to, Therese.
Wow.
Thank you. It was like awesome having you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We want you to come back and join us again another time.
And let me share something with people that they might not know. When Therese and I were together, she would be terrified to get on the phone and order Chinese food.
I still don't order Chinese food or pizza.
And speaking in front of people, hell no. Mm-mm. And we started doing our podcast together, and I'm like, she's like a rock star. And I'm so impressed and so proud and so happy that this is, it's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool.
And,
I love it.
When this show's over, you really want to grow, get off the show and order some hot and sour soup on the phone.
They have apps for that now. I don't even have to get on the phone.
Oh, that's so funny.
Can I hit you with a couple questions before we close, Therese?
Sure.
Yeah, do it.
Should I do it? Okay. This is Bernard Pinault, who was Bernard Pivot, which was a talk show host. And of course, most recently, James Lipton from the Actors Studio asked these questions of his guests just to kind of put a pin on who they are. This is just a handful of questions. Answer them any way, as truthfully or as not truthfully as you want.
Yeah.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word?
Yeah, your favorite word.
Not a cuss word?
Anything
we'll get to that.
I don't know. Do I really have a favorite word? Probably awesome. I think I say that a lot.
Nice.
Okay. What is your least favorite word?
See you next Tuesday.
Okay.
I don't like that word.
I'm not a fan of that one either. Okay. What gets you excited? When you see something or experience something, what is something that really gets you feeling good and happy?
Well, now at this stage of my life, it's the granddaughters. Just seeing the world through their eyes is a whole new experience. The joy they have in chasing bubbles and all of those things that you forget about when you're younger.
What is something that completely turns you off? Like just get away from it. Just awful.
Dishonesty.
Oh, perfect.
Why? What did you think I was going to say?
No. It's perfect. I'm not going to guess.
I don't know.
I'm not throwing my shit out there. There's your question there. Okay, what's your favorite curse word?
Oh, I would say shit. I say that a lot.
Yeah, you do. What sound do you like? What sound or noise do you like to hear?
I don't like birds, you know that, but I like wind chimes.
Wind chimes. Okay, what sound or noise do you hate? Birds.
Birds.
Okay, we already know that. One day I'll tell the story about the stop, the road stop in Florida. when I was in Florida.
Oh my gosh, miserable.
It was like a Hitchcock movie.
It was.
It was horrible. It was horrible. Okay, if you can try any profession in the world, you just for the hell of it, just try something. What would you like to try? Any profession?
Hairdresser.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
What profession would you absolutely never, ever, ever want to do?
Garbage man.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Last question. If heaven exists, let's make an assumption that heaven exists, and you end up at the pearly gates and God meets you there, what would you like God to say to you?
I would like him to I guess acknowledge what good people I left behind.
Mm.
Oh,
You know, like my kids and relationships I've had and my friends, and just recognize that I was something to them, something to somebody else.
I like that. I like
Mhm.
that. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I appreciate you.
Beautiful.
Thank you for not making me part of all the negative stuff. What's the noise you hate? Scott's voice. Oh, you know what? We've
Oh,
gone
boy.
over, but it's been a blast. I want to thank Gene and Melissa and Sandy and everybody else out there who's been listening. We've had a lot of people hitting the hearts and likes and everything, and I appreciate all of you
Awesome.
right here on the Life Between All or Nothing. We will be back next week. Teresa and I will be back on Wednesday with the Access podcast, so make sure you guys tune in for that. We'll be looking for new crimes and murders to dig our little grubby paws into, and maybe just have a little fun along the way as well. But any final thoughts, Teresa?
No. Give yourself grace.
No, she's cool. She's like, it's not my show. I'm not supposed to have final thoughts.
No, I'm not.
Mary, but it is
funny.
your show, so you got to give us some final
Woo!
thoughts.
Oh, final thoughts. You know what? Falling off the track, whether it's a slow fall or a hard fall or whatever, it's okay. It happens to all of us. You can get back on track. You can get back on a different track. Get curious. Feel your feelings. You got this, and I believe in you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And for me, obviously, like I always say, do one thing nice for somebody else, two things nice for yourself every day. You'll never have a bad day. And if you do kind of come off the tracks and you get derailed or by life, by relationships, by money, abuse problems, whatever it might be that takes you off your track, do me a favor. Before you right the train, before you pick that train up and put that trolley right back on its little tracks, make sure they're your tracks. Make sure you're not riding on someone else's railroad. Make sure that the path you're on is the path that you want to be on, because it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to right the train if you're going to be on the wrong set of tracks. All right. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Love you all. We'll catch you next time right here. And thanks again, Therese, for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Right here.
Thank you.
The Life Between
Bye,
All or
Mary.
Nothing.
Bye.
Bye.